Get down, you ungrateful little wretch. Hattie Mae Pritchard's hands split the silence across Emily Carter's face before the 5-year-old could even parse the word. The wagon bucked. Emily spilled into the dirt, palms shredding on jagged rock, stale bread crusts tumbling around her bloodied knees. Don't you follow. Don't you dare follow. Wheels groaned forward, dust swallowed the trail, and little Emily, barefoot, bleeding, 5 years old, watched the only family she had ever known vanish into the Montana pines. Before this story breaks you apart and puts you back together different, subscribe, ring that bell, and leave a comment telling me which town or city you're listening from tonight. I read every one. Emily's journey has only just begun. The wagon had stopped twice that October morning, once for the gray mare to drink from a creek, once for Silas Pritchard to chew tobacco and spit it into the scrub. Little Emily Carter sat on the bench between husband and wife the way a dog sits at the edge of a kitchen table, desperate to be noticed and terrified of the moment it is. Hattie Mae, you ain't seriously fixing to leave that child out here? I'm seriously fixing to do exactly what I said I was fixing to do. Silas Pritchard, don't you start with me. She's 5 years old, woman. She's 5 years old and she's eaten twice what she's worth, and I have made up my mind. The girl between them did not move, did not breathe loud. Emily had learned long before this morning that the smallest sound from her lips could birth the biggest storm from Hattie Mae. Her bare feet dangled above the floorboards. Her hands rested folded in her lap, a tiny old woman bracing for the worst. The Lord ain't gonna forgive this, Hattie. The Lord won't forgive this till the day you die. The Lord ain't the one feeding her, Silas. The Lord ain't the one washing her sheets. The Lord ain't the one who gave up 2 whole years of her life on a child what wasn't hers to start with. You said yes. You said yes when the church asked. I said yes when I thought there was money in it. I said yes when the preacher promised a stipend. Now the stipend's dried up and the child's still here, and I ain't running a charity, Silas Pritchard, and you know I ain't. There's a homestead 2 miles back, the Hendersons. The Hendersons got 6 of their own and a 7th on the way, and you know that too. Drive on, Hattie. Drive on. Silas drove on. Emily grasped maybe 1 word in 3. She understood child. She understood ain't. She understood the way Hattie Mae's voice climbed at the tail of every sentence, like a hand rising before it falls. The rest was fog. All she knew was that she was the thing being discussed, and whatever was being discussed held nothing good for her. The trail thinned, pines pressed close on both sides. Silas drew back the reins. Last chance, Hattie Mae. Last chance before God Almighty. Turn this wagon back to Bozeman and we'll figure something out. There ain't nothing to figure. Stop the wagon, Hattie. Stop the wagon. Silas stopped the wagon. A long second passed where nobody moved. Then Hattie Mae turned toward the child, and her face changed. Emily knew that face. The face Hattie wore the night she hurled the soup pot across the kitchen. The face she wore the morning she said God had played a joke on her by sending this one. It was the face that meant Emily had to become very, very small. Get down. Emily did not move. Get down, child. Hattie, for the love of mercy, get down. Emily climbed down. The wagon step was too high for her. Her bare foot slipped. She tumbled into the dirt, and her palms tore open on a stone the size of a man's fist. She did not cry. Crying made things worse. Crying made Hattie's face do that thing, the thing beyond the thing. Hattie Mae reached behind her and pulled out a small cloth bundle. 3 heels of bread gone stale, the kind Hattie would not eat herself. She threw it down. It landed beside Emily's bleeding hand. Hattie said, Silas's voice had gone strangely thin, distant somehow, even sitting right there on the bench. Hattie, please, please, woman. There's wolves in these woods. Drive on. There's wolves, Hattie. Drive on, Silas. Emily looked up. She did not understand. The wagon was the only home she had ever known. The bench between Silas and Hattie, that was where she ate. The folded blanket beneath the seat, that was where she slept. The wagon was everything. Mama, she said. It was the first word the child had spoken all morning. Hattie Mae's lips drew tight, thin as wire, hard as bone. For one wild second, Emily believed Silas would climb down. His shoulders trembled. His mouth fell open. His hand released the reins and drifted back. Just an inch. One single inch. The way a man moves when he's changed his mind. He did not climb down. He clicked his tongue. The mare stepped forward. The wheels groaned into motion, and Hattie Mae Pritchard never turned her head. Not once. Not even when Emily ran. Because Emily ran. She forgot her bleeding palms. She forgot the bread in the dirt. Bare feet slapping rock and pine needle and broken stick, she screamed in a voice far too large for her small body. "Wait! Wait, Mama, wait!" The wagon pulled ahead. Come back, please. I'll be good. I'll be quiet, I won't eat nothing. Mama, please." The wagon pulled further. She ran until her lungs caught fire. She ran until a pine root snagged her bare toe and sent her down hard on her chin, iron and dirt flooding her mouth. She got up, kept running. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Mama, I love you. Mama, I love you." The wagon rounded a bend in the trail and vanished. Emily ran around the bend. Empty trail. She ran past it. Empty trail. She ran until running was gone from her legs. Then she walked. Then she crawled. Then she sat down in the middle of that trail, pressed bleeding hands over her face, and wailed. The wail of a child discovering the world is not what she'd been told. Quote, _15 __, nobody came back. The pines stood still, the wind held its breath. A single black bird rose from a tree somewhere ahead, crossed the gray sky, and disappeared. Quote, _16 _. She spoke to the empty trail for a long time. The empty trail gave her nothing back. After a while she stood because she did not know what else a person could do, and walked back the way she had come. Maybe the bread was still there. Maybe if she gathered up the bread, the wagon would return. Children think this way, that if they do the right small thing, the big wrong thing will undo itself. The bread was there. The cloth bundle was there. She picked it up with hands that left red prints on the muslin. She sat beside the deep wheel ruts where the wagon had stopped and placed one heel of stale bread in her mouth. Chewed slow, the way Hattie always told her to chew. She folded the rest tight into the cloth and held it against her chest like a doll. Quote, 17. Quote. She whispered to herself in a voice she had heard Hattie Mae use 1,000 times. She sat there. After a long while, her own voice crept out again, smaller now. She turned that over, turned it the way a 5-year-old turns things, slowly, mouth hanging a little open. The pines did not argue. The pines did not argue with that either. Emily cast her mind further back. She did not have many memories. Being only 5, a person collects so few. But she had some. 2 winters passed. A woman who smelled of clean soap. That woman had lifted her from somewhere and settled her on one hip. Quote 22, quote 23, quote 24, quote 25, quote 26. The woman carried her to a building with a long porch and too many children. A man in a black coat spoke words over her, and then the woman with the clean soap smell was gone. Emily remembered crying for her. The man in the black coat had patted her head and told her God loved her. Emily had not known what God was. She hoped God smelled like clean soap. Then one day Hattie Mae had come. Quote 27, quote 28, quote 29. This child ain't but 3 years old. I can count, Reverend. I'll take her. She's quiet, ain't she? Looks quiet to me. She's a sweet child, been through a great deal. I don't need sweet. I need quiet. And I need her doing for herself before she turns 6. You understand me? I ain't running no nursery. Mrs. Pritchard, there's a stipend, ain't there? The Reverend in his black coat had gone silent a long while. Then he'd said, quote, 30. 2 years, that's all you said. That's all the church can promise. 2 years will do. Come on, child, you're mine now. That was the first time Hattie Mae had spoken those words. You're mine. It was also the last time she'd spoken them with anything resembling want. Emily, sitting in the dirt of an empty trail deep in the Montana pines, did not recall all of this in language. She recalled it in fragments. The clean soap smell, the long porch, the Reverend saying God, Hattie Mae's hand closing over her shoulder like a lock. She remembered Silas on that first night at the Pritchard cabin, kneeling to her height, speaking low and kind. It's going to be all right, little one. I'll look out for you. I promise. He had not looked out for her. He had driven the wagon. The shadows stretched long now across the trail. Emily's stomach had passed beyond hunger into something quieter, something stranger. She did not know this was the beginning of a dangerous thing. She knew only that she was tired, that her chin was crusted with dried blood, that the cloth bundle pressed to her chest was the single object in this world she could call hers. A noise rose from the pines, not distant, near. A snap, a shuffle. Emily froze. "Mama," she whispered. "Mama, is that you? Did you come back? Mama." The noise came again, closer now. "Mama, I've been good. I ain't moved from this spot. Look, Mama, look at me. I ain't moved." Closer still, it was not Hattie Mae. Emily understood this the way small children understand approaching storms, not with thought, but with the fine hairs lifting on the back of her neck. She rose slow, careful. She pressed the bread bundle to her chest with both bleeding hands. She backed away from the sound. She did not run because some voice inside her, older than 5 years, was whispering, "Don't run, don't run, don't run." Running brings the thing. Whatever lived in those pines moved on. The branches settled. The forest swallowed its secret whole. Emily exhaled. She had been holding her breath without knowing it. Quote 33, quote, she whispered to herself. Quote 34, quote. She walked. She did not know toward what. She followed the trail because the trail was the one thing that was not forest. The trail had been made by people. People might return along it. People had to return, didn't they? Hattie always said people came back if you were good, but Hattie had not come back. Emily walked until the sun hung low and orange between the trunks. Then she walked a little farther because stopping frightened her worse than moving. Then her legs refused her. She sat at the base of a tall pine, tucked her knees beneath her chin, made herself as small as a girl of 5 can manage, which is small but never small enough. "God," she said, the way the Reverend had taught her once long ago in the building with the long porch. "God, are you there? It's Emily, Emily Carter, the one with the brown hair." The pines gave her nothing back. "God, my mama left me. My mama, Hattie. I think maybe she left me on accident. I think maybe she'll remember and come back. I think probably." A wind pushed through the pines and made a long, lonesome sound. "God, if she don't remember, if she don't come back, can you send somebody? Anybody? Even the Reverend. I'd be good for him. I'd be real good. I'd be quiet. I wouldn't ask for nothing." She waited. She waited the way a child waits when told to wait by an adult and is too afraid to disobey. Then she said the things she had not said all day, the things she had refused to let herself think. "I don't want to die, God." She said it very small, the way a person speaks a truth too large for their mouth to hold. Mama Hattie said I wasn't worth the bread, said I ate too much, said I wasn't worth keeping. Maybe she's right, God. Maybe I ain't worth keeping. But I don't want to die. I don't want to. Please, God, please. The wind gave nothing back. But somewhere far off, so far off Emily couldn't be certain she'd heard it at all. So far off she thought maybe her own mind had built it from nothing. The way frightened children build things from nothing. A sound drifted down the trail. Hoofbeats. Just one horse. Not a wagon, not the wagon. A single horse, slow and steady, a long way off. The kind of sound a horse makes under a rider who isn't rushed. A man who knows the trail, a man who's ridden it before. Emily raised her face from her knees. She didn't stand, she didn't call out. She'd chased a wagon once today, and that wagon never turned around. She had nothing left in her to chase another sound that might be nothing. So she listened. The hoofbeats kept coming. Closer now, not close, but closer. She pressed her cheek back against her knees, closed her eyes, held the bread bundle tight, tight, tight. "God," she whispered, "if that's a person, if that really is a person on this trail, please let him be kind. Please, God. I've been good. I've been so, so good." The hoofbeats kept coming. Montana's sun dropped behind the dark wall of pines. Long shadows stretched across the trail like reaching fingers. Somewhere in the woods, a single wolf, only one, only the first, lifted its head and loosed a thin, drawn-out cry that hung in the dusk like a question. Nobody wanted it answered, and 5-year-old Emily Carter, bloodied, hungry, abandoned, alone, sat perfectly still at the base of that great pine. 3 heels of stale bread clutched against her thin little chest, waiting for whoever the world would send her next. The hoofbeats grew louder, then stopped. Not arrived. Stopped. A horse pulled up somewhere in the trees behind her. Maybe 40 yards back along the trail, Emily's whole small body went rigid against the bark. A man's voice threaded through the pines, low, rough, talking to his horse the way men do when they believe no one is listening. Easy now, easy, girl. Something ain't right up here. Emily held her breath. Smell that, do you? You smell that too? That's blood, girl. Something bled up here and it weren't no deer. A pause. The creak of saddle leather. A boot hitting dirt. All right then. Let's have us a look. Those footsteps were not William Hale's footsteps. Emily didn't know that yet. She didn't know William Hale at all. But her small body knew. Her small body had spent 2 years under Hattie Mae Pritchard's roof. It had learned to read the difference between a step that meant food and a step that meant shut your mouth, child. These steps were the second kind. Hello, the voice called, not friendly, not searching for a child, searching for something. Anybody up there? Anybody hurt? Emily pressed her cheek into the pine bark and made no sound. I see them tracks, friend. I see 'em plain. Somebody come up this trail bleeding and I'm of a mind to find out who. So you may as well speak up. The footsteps came closer, slow, each one placed deliberate, the way a man walks when he doesn't want to be heard until he's ready to be. Saw a wagon turn back 20 minutes ago. The voice was closer now, saw it hauling east like the devil was on it. Now I find blood on the trail and a little bitty footprint in the mud. You want to tell me what kind of story that is, friend? Emily's bleeding palms went slick again. She'd been clenching them, hadn't known she'd been clenching them. The man stopped walking, close now, maybe 10 paces from the great pine. She could hear him breathing, slow and easy like a man who had all night. Little one, he said. His voice had changed, softer, sweeter, the way a coyote softens its voice when it speaks through a henhouse door. Little one, I know you're up here. I can see your bread bundle, Sugar. I can see them bare feet behind that tree. You come on out, and old cow will see you home. You hear me, Sugar? Emily did not move. Sugar, them woods ain't safe for a little thing like you. Old cow's got a horse and old cow's got a fire and old cow will see you fed. You come on out now. She did not move. She did not move because Hattie Mae Pritchard, for all her cruelty, had taught Emily one thing, right? Hattie told her once about a girl in the next valley over. Girl went off with a stranger, never came home. Hattie said it cold, hands working through a bowl of peas. That's what happens to girls who go with strangers. Don't you ever forget it, child. The lesson sank past skin, past muscle, settled into bone. Old cow was a stranger. Old cow's voice was wrong. Sugar, closer now. The man stood right beside the pine. Emily could see around the trunk, the toe of a boot, caked in old mud, and something darker. Sugar, I'm losing my patience. You come out from behind that tree, or old cow's gonna come around and get you. And that would be a shame, wouldn't it? A real shame. Emily's mouth opened, a sound rising in her throat, a sob, a whimper, the sound that always came when Hattie's voice took that edge. She bit her own lip until the iron taste flooded back. All right, Sugar, you want to play it that way? The boot moved. The man stepped around the pine. And that was when the second set of hoofbeats came down the trail. Not slow, not searching. A strong, steady canter. The gait of a horse whose rider knew exactly where he was headed and meant to arrive before dark. The man behind the pine, Cal, whoever Cal was, froze. Emily heard his breath pull in sharp. Hell! A new voice rang from the trail, full-throated and unafraid. The voice of a man who did not soften it for anybody. You there, step out where I can see you. Cal stepped out. Emily heard him do it. The soft scuff of mud-caked boots leaving the pine, moving back toward the trail. Just traveling through, mister. Just traveling through. You're standing a long way off the trail to be traveling through. Whose horse is that tied yonder? Mine, mister. That's my horse. Mm-hmm. And what are you doing 20 paces into the trees talking to somebody I can't see? A pause. Wasn't talking to nobody. Friend, the new voice had gone quiet. Quiet was worse than loud. Even Emily, 5 years old, knew that quiet was worse than loud. Friend, you're talking to William Hale. You know that name. The silence that followed told Emily that Cal knew the name well. Mr. Hale, I didn't know it was you, sir. That's plain. Now you tell me real slow what you were doing off this trail. Just heard something, Mr. Hale. Thought maybe a fellow was hurt. Did you? Yes, sir. And was a fellow hurt? Couldn't find nobody, Mr. Hale. Mm-hmm. A long pause. The creak of saddle leather. Cal Doggett. That's your name, ain't it? Cal Doggett. You were up before Judge Reeves last spring on a charge about a girl out of Bannock. Charge didn't stick on account of the girl wouldn't speak. You remember that, Cal? Cal said nothing. I remember it. I remember it real well. Now you climb on that horse of yours and ride east. I'd better not see your face on this trail again before snowfall. You hear me, Cal Doggett? Yes, sir. Mr. Hale, go! Boots scrambled, saddle leather creaked, hooves struck dirt. A horse went pounding away down the trail at a pace that held no dignity in it. For a long moment after Cal Doggett was gone, the only sound was a single horse breathing slow on the trail. Then the new voice spoke again, changed. The iron had drained from it. What remained was something quieter, something older, something almost— Emily would not have had a word for it, but she felt it, almost tired. Little one. Emily did not move. Little one, that man's gone. He won't come back. Not while I'm on this trail. You can come on out now. Emily did not come out. All right, that's all right. You stay where you are. I'll stay where I am. Ain't in no hurry, you and me. A long pause. The sound of a man dismounting. Saddle leather groaning. Boots hitting ground. Different boots. Heavier but slower than Cal's had been. Taking 3 paces and stopping. My name's Will Hale. I got a ranch about half a day's ride west of here. Been up to Bozeman to fetch a sack of nails, and now I'm headed home. Wasn't looking for trouble, wasn't looking for nothing. Just headed home. Emily pressed her cheek harder against the pine. I saw the wagon ruts where it stopped. I saw where 2 big boots came down and where they got back up. I saw where a little pair of bare feet came down too. And I saw where them little feet ran after the wagon and where they walked back and where they sat down a long while and where they walked again up the trail toward this here pine. Emily did not breathe. Little one, I ain't gonna come at you. I ain't gonna grab you. I ain't gonna do nothing you don't say is all right. But I can't ride off and leave you up here neither. Wolves been running this stretch all month long. Heard one already this evening, and there'll be more once the moon climbs. Silence. So I'm gonna sit myself down right here on this rock and I'm gonna eat my supper. I got jerk beef and a piece of cornbread my housekeeper Mary baked yesterday morning. Good cornbread. Got honey in it. Mary puts honey in on account of she says I got a sweet tooth, which I do. And if you was hungry, only if— I'd be much obliged for the company at supper. A pause. I'll set a piece right here on this rock. You don't gotta come for it. You don't gotta say a word to me. You can take it when I ain't looking. If that suits you better, all right. Emily heard cloth being unwrapped. She heard something placed on stone. She heard William Hale lower himself down, heard the long groan a big man releases when his knees have gone to rust. Then she heard him chewing. He did not speak another word for a long while. The sun dropped the rest of its way behind the pines. Emily's stomach made a noise, a loud one, the kind of noise she would have been struck for in the Pritchard cabin. She went rigid, waited for the blow. The blow never came. Instead, William Hale laughed, soft, low, the way a man laughs at something that ain't funny, just honest. That's a hungry sound, little one. That ain't a sound a body can pretend away. Emily's eyes burned. Something hot rose through her throat. Tell you what, he said. I'm going to stand up and walk over to my horse and check her shoe. She's been favoring that left 4 all afternoon, and I've been meaning to look. You'll know I'm at the horse because you'll hear me talking to her. Her name's Juno. She's a nosy old thing, and she likes a man to make conversation. While I'm over there, that piece of cornbread on this rock, it's just gonna sit. Ain't nobody watching it. All right. He stood. He walked. Emily heard every step. Hey now, Juno girl. Hey, you old nag. Let me have a look at that hoof. Emily moved. She did not decide to. Her body decided. Her body was that hungry. The bread Hattie had thrown her was 3 heels of stale crust. She had not eaten any of it for hours, because she had been hoarding it the way a child hoards what she does not believe will come again. She crawled from behind the pine on bleeding hands and bare knees. She crawled to the rock. The cornbread sat there, cut neat into a square, and it smelled like nothing she had ever known. It smelled like a place where somebody had stood in a kitchen and stirred honey into something on purpose, because somebody was going to eat it, and that somebody mattered. She snatched the cornbread. She bolted back behind the pine. She crammed the whole square into her mouth at once. It was the best thing that had ever happened to her. She chewed and her eyes filled, and the tears ran down her filthy face and into the corners of her mouth and mixed with the honey. She cried the silent kind of cry that children learn when they have learned that sound brings hurt. Over by the horse, William Hale spoke low to Juno. Easy, girl. Easy now. We ain't gonna spook nothing tonight. We ain't gonna spook nothing. Juno nickered. Yeah, I know, girl. I see her too. Emily behind the pine did not know that William Hale had watched her come out. He had timed his fussing with the horse so she could move and return and believe herself unseen. He kept at his fussing while she ate. He gave her every dignity a 5-year-old can possess when she has nothing else left. When she finished the cornbread, when she had licked the crumbs from her own bleeding palms, she did not fold herself as small as before. She sat at the base of the pine just beyond his sight, and she breathed. Little one, William said, still over by the horse, I ain't going to ask you to come out, but I'm going to ask you a yes or no question. Just one. You don't got to say nothing. You just got to listen. Emily listened. Was that you crying out for your mama on the trail an hour back? Was you the one saying, quote 48, quote, Emily's entire body went rigid. You don't got to answer, little one. You don't got to say nothing at all. I just need to know if I heard right, if that was you. Knock on that pine tree once if it was. A long, terrible silence stretched between them. Then with one small, bleeding fist, Emily Carter knocked once on the trunk of the great pine. William Hale said nothing for a count of 10. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. Thicker, older. The voice of a man who had put somebody in the ground once and never forgotten what the weight of that dirt felt like. All right, little one. All right, I heard you. Heard you clear. He cleared his throat. That woman who left you, she coming back? Silence. Knock once for yes, knock twice for no. Emily raised her fist. She pressed it to the bark. She did not knock. She did not knock for a long while, and then slowly her small, bleeding fist struck twice. 2 knocks? No. William Hale exhaled like a man setting down a burden he'd been hauling since long before he found her. All right, child. All right. That's the truth of it, then. That's the bare truth. He went quiet. Then what's your name, little one? You can whisper it. Whisper it so soft only the tree catches it. I'll listen close. Emily's mouth was dry. The honey had gone. Her tongue sat like a stone. Emily, she whispered, so small, barely a sound. Emily Carter. Emily Carter. William said it slow. Said it the way the Reverend in the black coat had spoken it once, 2 winters past. Said it like the name belonged to somebody who mattered. Emily Carter. That's a fine name. That's a fine, strong name. Emily pressed her face against her knees and wept without sound. Emily Carter, I ain't gonna lie to you. And I ain't gonna make promises I can't keep. I'm a stranger on this trail. Same as Cal Doggett was a stranger. You ain't got reason to trust me, and you ain't got reason to come out from behind that pine. He paused. But the sun's nearly gone, and there's wolves out here, and tonight's gonna be cold. Colder than any child your size should have to bear. So here's what I'm going to do. She listened. I'm going to build a fire right here on this trail, not close to your tree, far enough that you don't need to worry none. I'm going to lay my bedroll down beside that fire. I'm going to set a second blanket on the other side, a clean one. Hasn't touched another soul. And I'm going to leave it folded right there, in case some little person decides she's cold and wants to come sit by the fire of her own choosing. And I'm going to sleep, Emily Carter. Sleep with my back toward that tree and my hat pulled down over my eyes. I won't look once until morning. You have my word on that. A pause. And come morning when the sun's up, we'll talk about what happens next. About what you want to happen next. Not what I want. Not what nobody else wants. What you want. You hear me? Emily Carter. Emily behind the pine, face pressed to her bleeding knees, belly still warm with honey. For the first time in her short life, nodded. He could not see her nod, but somehow 100 yards through the gathering dusk he knew. All right, child, William Hale said softly. All right. And he went to gather wood. He gathered it the way a man gathers wood when he needs the gathering to be heard. Humming low beneath his breath, snapping each branch deliberate, letting the small sounds build a perimeter of, I am here. I am not creeping. I am not coming for you. Emily, behind the pine, listened to every crack and snap. All right, Juno girl, he said as he worked. We're making camp. Yes, ma'am, right here. No, you can't have my cornbread, you greedy thing. That cornbread's spoken for. A spark caught. A small fire bloomed somewhere on the trail. Emily could see the orange flicker through gaps in the pine bark. Just a wink of it, low against the ground. Blankets folded up here, child, William called without turning his head. Right side of the fire. Clean one. I'm settling on this side with my hat over my face, and I'm done for the night. You do what suits you. True to his word, Emily heard the long exhale of a big man lowering himself to earth, heard a hat slide across a face, heard nothing more. The cold arrived fast. Montana cold in October, not a cold a body argues with. It's a cold that walks straight into a child's bones and takes a seat. Emily shivered. She ground her cheek against the bark, but the bark offered nothing, cold as everything else. Her bare feet had passed through pain a long time ago, into that dead place where toes quit reporting. She held out an hour, maybe longer. Then her teeth started. The chattering of a 5-year-old's teeth is a small sound, but in the pines, small sounds carry. William Hale heard it. He did not move, did not speak. He just shifted, slow, deliberate, so his back made a wider wall against the ridge wind, hat over his face, waiting. Emily watched the orange flicker of the fire. She looked at the dark behind her. Somewhere deep in that dark, a stick broke. Not a bird, not wind, a footfall, 4 legs. Her body chose before her mind caught up. She crawled, hands and knees through the dirt, out from behind the pine toward the fire. Her eyes never left William's hat. The hat stayed still. The man stayed still. She crept around the far side of the flames, where the blanket lay folded, and she lowered herself onto the cold ground 3 feet from the heat. She pulled the blanket over her shoulders with both bleeding hands. It smelled like wool and wood smoke, and something else. Soap. Clean soap. Emily buried her face in the wool and breathed. For the first time since the wagon rolled away, dying stopped feeling inevitable. From the other side of the fire, William Hale spoke without lifting his hat. That blanket suits you, Miss Carter. Every muscle in her small body flinched. He had not looked. She was certain of it. He had felt her come. Yeah. Yes, sir. Her voice was barely a thing at all. Glad to hear it. Mary Collins washed that one in lye soap last week. Says she'll have my hide if I get it dirty. Silence. Then, who's Mary? He did not move the hat. He spoke to the sky above him. Mary Collins keeps the house out at the ranch. Been there 22 years. Older than me, meaner than me. Makes a peach cobbler that'll put a grown man on his knees. Got a tongue on her like a buggy whip. But she's the kindest soul in 3 counties, Miss Carter. That's the plain truth of it. Emily turned this over in her mind. She did not know what a buggy whip was. She thought she might know what kindest soul meant. some dim memory of the clean soap woman from 2 winters past. She said nothing more. She had nothing more. Out in the trees, the four-legged step returned. Closer now. Emily went rigid. William's hand, the one resting easy across his belly, moved without hurry. No fuss. It dropped beside the bedroll and came back holding a long iron something, laid it across his thighs. The hat stayed where it was. "That'll be her," he said, conversational, like a man noting a shift in the weather. "Big she-wolf's been working this draw. Lost 2 pups last month to a cougar. Been mean as the devil since. Don't you fret, Miss Carter. She and I are old acquaintances." Emily did not fret. Emily trembled. The blanket shook around her. The four-legged step came again, from behind the very pine where she had been sitting minutes before. A low growl spilled out of the darkness. Not loud, just there. The kind of sound that tells every small creature in the world to count its remaining breaths. William sighed. He sat up, put his hat on proper. He did not look at Emily. He looked past the fire into the black, and he raised the long iron thing to his shoulder. "Evening, old girl," he said to the dark. "I'd be obliged if you'd take supper somewhere else tonight." The growl came again, nearer. "I said somewhere else, ma'am." He fired. The sound hit Emily's chest like a fist. The blanket jumped. Her ears rang. Out in the dark, something yelped. Not a wound yelp, a fright yelp. 4 feet pounding away through the pines. William lowered the rifle, laid it back beside the bedroll. He took his hat off slow and set it back over his face. "My apologies for the noise, Miss Carter." Emily realized she had stopped breathing. She started again. The breath came out as a sob she could not catch in time. "It's all right, little one. It's all right. Old girl won't come back tonight. She's got a long memory, and tonight's noise just went in the bad column." Emily cried. The kind of cry she had not been permitted in 2 years. She cried with her whole face, her whole chest, her whole small body. The blanket caught most of it. William Hale on the other side of the fire did not look, did not speak, did not do one single thing except let a child cry. When she was done, truly done, not the false quiet before the next wave, but finished in the bones, she was too tired to hold her own head up. "Miss Carter," William said, voice low, "there's another blanket folded by my saddle. You're welcome to it. Make yourself a proper bed by that fire. Don't ask, just take." Emily looked. She saw the second blanket. She crawled to it, took it, wrapped herself in both, and laid down in the dirt 3 feet from the flame. Her body, which had been running on Hattie Mae's stale bread heels for a day and a half, gave out completely. She was asleep before her cheek touched wool. She did not hear William Hale rise sometime in the black center of the night, moving quiet, and lay his own coat over the smaller of the 2 huddled shapes beside the fire. She did not hear him settle back on his side and watch the dark for a long, long time. She did not hear him say, soft as a man can say a thing, "That woman left a baby for the wolves." Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 61, underscore, underscore. The night passed. Morning came gray and cold and honest. Emily woke to the smell of coffee, a smell she had encountered only twice in her life, both times from a distance. She sat up so fast the blankets slid off her shoulders. William Hale crouched by the fire, pouring something dark from a tin pot into a tin cup. He did not turn. Quote 62. She gave no answer. Hungry had always been a question with a price at the Pritchard cabin. Quote 63. William said, still facing the fire. Emily nodded at his back. Then, realizing he could not see her, he brought her a tin plate, set it on a flat stone near her blankets, 2 pieces of bacon, a wedge of cornbread, 3 slivers of dried apple. He placed the tin cup beside it. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore 67, underscore, underscore. He returned to his side of the fire, sat with his own plate, ate with his eyes on his food, like a man who had eaten by 1,000 fires alone, and expected to eat by 1,000 more. Emily picked up the bacon, put it in her mouth, closed her eyes. She had no words for what bacon tasted like. She had never had bacon. Hattie had bacon sometimes for Silas. Emily had been allowed to smell it cooking. Now it was in her mouth, salty, hot, thick with fat, and her eyes filled again. But she would not let the tears fall. She did not want William Hale to see her cry over food. He did not see, or pretended not to. She set down the bacon, held the tin cup in both bleeding hands. Emily thought hard. She thought about the building with the long porch, the reverend in the black coat, the clean soap whose name she had never learned. She whispered. He paused. She shook her head. He chewed slow, he said. Emily looked into the cup of coffee. The milk made it pale, the honey made it sweet. No one had ever made a thing just right for her before, not once in all her years of living. Mr. Hale, sir. Yes, Miss Carter. Why are you being kind to me? He did not answer straight off. He lifted the coffee pot and poured himself another cup, drank it slow, set the cup down gentle. 12 years ago, Miss Carter. I had a wife. Her name was Sarah. We had a daughter. Her name was Rose. They both took sick the same week. Cholera. I buried them on a Tuesday, side by side on a hill west of the ranch house. Rose was 4 years old, had brown hair like yours. He stopped talking, cleared his throat hard. That's why. Emily sat without moving. Ain't trying to make my Rose out of you, child. You ain't her. You're you, Emily Carter. But I've been riding past empty trails 12 years running, and I ain't never come upon one with a child sitting under a pine before. Way I figure it, a man finds what the Lord sets on his path. The Lord sets you on this path. So, here we are. Emily drank the coffee, sweet, warm. It slid down into her belly and planted something like courage there. Mr. Hale. Yes, I want to come. He did not turn his head, did not whoop or grin wide, just nodded once, slow, the way a man nods when he takes a thing as serious as death. All right, Miss Carter. All right, then. We ride. They broke camp inside 20 minutes. He put the fire out careful, folded the blankets tight, tied her into his coat, far too big, sleeves rolled 6 times, and set her up in front of him on Juno's saddle. His arm, a steady bar across her middle. It did not press, did not grip, just kept. You hold the saddle horn, Miss Carter. Don't worry about falling. I got you. Juno walked. They rode west through the pines for an hour. Emily did not speak. She had never sat a horse before, the bigness of the animal, the warmth of it, the aliveness moving underneath her. It was a new wonder, and her small head held nothing else. Mr. Hale? Yes, child. What's a dogget? He went quiet a moment. Where'd you hear that word, Miss Carter? That man last night, you called him a dogget. Cal Doggett, that's his name. A man's name, child. Just a man's name. Was he going to do something bad to me? The arm around her middle did not tighten, but Emily felt the bone beneath it go stiff for one beat before it eased. Yes, Miss Carter, he was, but you don't gotta worry on him. He's east of here by now and headed further still. You won't see him no more. Mr. Hale, yes, why does people do bad things to little girls? The big arm stayed steady around her. The horse walked on. William Hale did not answer for a long stretch. When he spoke again, his voice came thicker than before. Some men's hearts go bad, Miss Carter. Same way meat goes bad in the heat. Ain't no good reason for it, just goes. And the world's job, child, is to put men like that on a road out of town and never let them back. That's all there is. Ain't nothing more worth saying about it. Oh. They rode another mile. Then, ahead on the trail, around a bend thick with pines, came a sound Emily Carter never expected to hear again in her life. A wagon. Coming the other direction. Coming slow. Her whole small body went rigid against William Hale's coat. He felt it instantly. Easy, Miss Carter. Mr. Hale. Easy, child. That's the sound of... I know what it's the sound of. You hold tight to that saddle horn. Hold tight. You hear me? Don't you let go for nothing. The wagon rounded the bend. It was the Pritchard wagon. Same gray mare, same chipped boards, same square shape Emily had run after through the pines until her bare feet bled, screaming for a mama who had never been her mama. In the driver's seat sat Hattie Mae Pritchard, bonnet tied tight beneath her chin, mouth a hard line cut into her face. Beside her sat Silas. Behind them in the wagon bed sat a third person, a man Emily did not know. He wore a dark coat, a flat hat, and a tin star pinned to his chest. A lawman. Hattie Mae's eyes caught fire the instant she saw the horse coming toward her. The instant she saw the small shape bundled in the big man's coat. The instant she saw Emily Carter breathing. Hattie Mae's mouth opened into a shape that was not joy. Something worse lived in it, something practiced, calculation. Hattie Mae shrieked it, voice climbing, cracking, rehearsed to the note. The lawman in the back of the wagon rose to his feet. His hand found the gun on his hip. He called across 40 yards of open trail. William Hale's arm did not shift from around Emily's middle. His other hand rested on the saddle horn, loose, unhurried. He did not reach for his rifle. He did not raise his voice. He called back just as steady. The trail went silent the way a saloon goes silent when the wrong man steps through the door. Even Juno quit working her bit. Even the wind through the pines held its breath. The sheriff's hand stayed on the butt of his pistol. He did not draw. He did not release. He just held there, sizing up the man on the horse 40 yards distant, and his jaw worked once. You said William Hale. That's right. Of the Hale Ranch out past the Three Forks. That's right. The sheriff took his hand off the pistol. Took it off slow, the way a man releases a thing when he realizes he was one heartbeat from a mistake that would follow him into the ground. Mr. Hale, sir, I beg your pardon, didn't recognize you at the distance. No need to beg my pardon, Sheriff. You was doing your job. The lady told you a story. You believed it. That's what a sheriff ought to do. Now I'd like you to do the second half of your job. Hear my story. Then decide which one of us is lying. Hattie Mae Pritchard came off the wagon bench like a hen flapping off a fence rail. He's lying! He's lying! Sheriff, don't you listen to him. He took my baby. Took her right off the road. The kidnapper! Mrs. Pritchard, Sheriff, you promised me. Mrs. Pritchard, sit down, sit down. She sat hard. The wagon creaked beneath her. The sheriff turned. He had a horse tied behind the wagon, Emily saw it now, and swung up into the saddle. He walked the animal out toward William Hale at an easy pace, hands on the reins. No weapon drawn. Mr. Hale, you say there's another side to this. I'm listening. William did not move his arm from around Emily's middle. He spoke easy, the way a man speaks when he knows every word is going on the record. He held up a fist. The sheriff's face turned to stone. I know it. I run him off. I sat down by the trail and I waited. Took a long while. Eventually, a child come out from behind a pine. This child, she was bleeding from her hands and her chin. She had 3 heels of stale bread in a cloth and not one stitch on her feet. She told me her name was Emily Carter. He paused. And she told me, Sheriff, listen close now. She told me the woman in that wagon yonder was not coming back for her. He's lying, Hattie Mae shrieked from the wagon. Sheriff, he's putting words in that child's mouth. You can see it plain. Silas, tell him. Tell him how we lost her. Tell him how she wandered off. Silas Pritchard, sitting beside his wife, did not tell him. Silas Pritchard sat with his hands between his knees and his eyes on the floorboards of the wagon. He did not say one single word. Silas Pritchard. The sheriff's voice cut across the trail flat as a board. Silas did not look up. Silas looked up. His face was the gray of a man who had not slept and would not sleep, who knew in his bones he had earned not sleeping. Silas opened his mouth. Hattie Mae's hand shot out and seized his arm. Silas Pritchard, you tell the sheriff how we... Mrs. Pritchard, you take your hand off your husband's arm. She did not. Mrs. Pritchard, I will not ask you again. She did, slow, like the hand was unwilling. Silas, the sheriff said once more, was you hunting for this child all night? Silence stretched. Stretched until it became its own kind of answer. No, sir. Silas's voice came out split down the middle. Hattie Mae went the color of ash. The sheriff swung his horse broadside to the wagon. His tone flattened to something official and cold. Silas looked down at his own hands like they belonged to a stranger. Silas's voice cracked apart. Yes, sir, I knew. God help me, I knew all of it. Hattie Mae began to scream, not crying, not weeping. The sound of a woman watching her careful scheme collapse beneath her, a sound that climbed through the pines like something unnatural, something that had no business existing among trees. You fool! You soft-headed old fool, you— Mrs. Pritchard, you will be quiet, ma'am. You was the one said the stipend dried up. You was the one said we couldn't keep her no more. Mrs. Pritchard, I ain't going to prison over some orphan brat. Sheriff, you hear me? I ain't. The whole trail heard it. The pines heard it. The sheriff heard it. William Hale heard it. And Emily Carter, sitting wrapped in a coat 3 sizes too large, William's arm locked steady as an iron bar across her belly. Emily Carter heard it most of all. 2 years of quote, underscore 131 underscore. 2 years of making herself small and silent. 2 years of hoarding every smile, every scrap of affection, every fragile hope, all for a woman who had just called her some orphan brat, in front of a sheriff in the pines and God himself. Something inside Emily that had been gripping on with both small, bloody hands finally released. She did not cry. She did not scream. She simply spoke, small and clear, the voice of a child who has at last understood one true thing. Quote, 132 underscore. The trail went dead still. Hattie Mae's mouth fell open, but no sound followed. You wasn't never my mama, Emily said. I was asking the wrong person the whole time. I'm sorry I called you mama. I'm sorry I ran after the wagon. I won't do it no more. William Hale's arm did not shift, but Emily felt it tremble once, brief as a breath, and then go rigid as a fence post. The sheriff cleared his throat, cleared it a second time. Quote, 135, quote, 136, quote, 137, quote. The sheriff turned his horse back toward the wagon. His voice when it came was not loud. Loud was not what the moment required. Quote, 138, quote, 139, quote, 140, quote, 141, quote, 142. Silas turned it, slow, like a man whose hands no longer belonged to him. Hattie Mae sat beside him with her mouth still open, bonnet knocked crooked on her head. And as the wagon swung past William Hale's horse, she finally looked at Emily. Emily did not look back. Emily stared straight ahead between Juno's ears, west, where the trail led home. Hattie Mae's mouth closed. The sheriff fell in behind the wagon. Before he spurred forward, he touched his hat brim toward William Hale. Mr. Hale, I'm going to need you and the child in Bozeman by week's end. Statement for the judge. We'll be there Friday, Sheriff. Mr. Hale. Sheriff, that is a brave little girl. Sheriff, that ain't even half of what she is. The wagon rolled east. The sheriff rolled east behind it. The sound of wheels and hooves shrank down to nothing. Then silence. Emily and William sat atop Juno in that silence, letting it settle around them like dust after a departing coach. Miss Carter? Sir, you all right? She considered that question, considered it honest, the way a person does when they have just spoken something true for the first time in their life. No, sir. I don't reckon I am. A pause. That's a fair answer, child, but I will be. William Hale said nothing to that. He clicked his tongue at Juno. They turned west. They rode. They came down through the pines in the middle of the afternoon into country that opened up. Long grass, low hills, a sky stretching wide as forever the way Montana skies do. Emily had not known the world held that much sky. She kept tilting her head back to take it in, and William kept his arms steady, and Juno walked on. Somewhere around the 3rd hour, Emily spoke again. Mr. Hale? Yes, Miss Carter. Is there really a dog? Beg pardon? At your house? You said there was an old dog named Pete. There surely is. Sleeps on the porch. Pete's a lazy old hound. Wouldn't chase a rabbit if the rabbit ran across his nose. Do he bite? Pete ain't bit nothing but his own fleas in 9 years. Oh. Quiet stretched between them. Mr. Hale. Yes. Will Pete like me? The big man behind her went still a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried something Emily did not yet have a word for. Miss Carter, that old dog is going to fall in love with you the second you step onto that porch. I'd wager a year's beef on it. Emily leaned back against William's coat. She said nothing for a mile. Then, quote, 166, quote, 167, quote, 168, quote, 169, quote, 170, quote, 169, quote, 170, quote, 171, quote, 172, quote, 173, quote, 174. The big arm around her tightened one beat, then eased. Quote, 175. The Hale Ranch rose out of the long grass late in the afternoon. Low white house, long red barn, corral of horses, a windmill turning slow against the breeze. And on the porch of that white house, a small round woman in a calico apron who had been watching the trail since lunch. Mary Collins came down off that porch the instant she saw William's hat on the horizon. Came down fast for a woman of her years. By the time Juno reached the hitching post, Mary Collins stood in the dirt already, both hands on her hips, mouth hanging open. William Hale? Mary? William Hale, you rode to Bozeman for nails. I did, Mary. And what, sir, is that? She pointed at the small wrapped bundle in his coat. William swung down from Juno careful, keeping Emily steady with one hand. Set her on bare feet in the dirt. Took off his hat. Mary Collins, this here is Miss Emily Carter. She is 5 years old. She is going to be staying with us a spell. She likes cornbread with honey. She is partial to bacon. She has not had a proper bath in I cannot say how long. I would be obliged if you would treat her like she is the most important person. Whatever come up that road on account of this evening, she is. Mary Collins's mouth closed, opened, closed again. Then Mary Collins did something Emily had never once had done to her in 5 years of being alive on this earth. Mary Collins got down on her knees in the dirt, in her clean calico apron. Got down so her face was level with Emily's face, and she reached out one work-rough hand, slow, the way a person reaches toward a wounded bird. Honey, child, Mary Collins said. Honey, child. You come on inside with Mary now. You come on in. We're going to run a tub of warm water and find you a clean dress and put some ointment on them poor little hands, and we are gonna... William Hale, get out of my way. I am bringing this baby inside. William Hale stepped aside. Mary Collins stood. She held out her hand, did not grab, held it palm up, waited. Emily looked at the hand, looked up at Mary Collins's face. Round, lined, gray hair pinned beneath a kerchief. Eyes so soft, Emily did not know what to do with them. Emily placed her small, bleeding hand into Mary Collins's hand. They walked into the White House together. Behind them on the porch, the old hound called Pete raised his graying head from his paws. He watched the small figure pass and gave one slow thump of his tail against the boards. Inside, Mary Collins drew a tub of warm water. She washed Emily's hair 3 times. 2 had not been enough to strip the trail from it. She dabbed ointment on Emily's palms, her chin, her bare feet. She found an old nightshirt of her own that hung to Emily's ankles and dressed her in it. She sat Emily at the kitchen table. She set before her a plate of stewed beef and biscuits and butter and a glass of milk so cold the glass wept. Emily ate. Ate until her body would take no more. When the plate sat empty, she looked at Mary Collins. Looked at her with the measured eyes of a child who understood that good things disappeared. Mary Collins's eyes did something then. They did not harden, they did not narrow, they filled. Mary Collins reached across the table. She took Emily's small bandaged hand into her own. Quote 188. Emily's eyes brimmed over. But if I keep one anyway, then you keep one, baby. You keep 2. You keep 3. Tuck them under your pillow if you got to. Mary will not say one word. You hear me, child? Not one word. Emily took 2 biscuits. She folded them into a napkin. She pressed them to her chest and let Mary Collins guide her up the stairs to a small room with a small bed and a small lamp turned low. Mary tucked her in. Mary kissed her forehead. Sleep, baby. Ma'am. Mary. Ma'am. Yes, honey. Will Mr. Hale be here in the morning? Mary Collins smiled. and her eyes went wet again, and she shook her head at herself. Honey child, William Hale is going to be here every morning. That man has not gone anywhere in 12 long years. You sleep now, baby, you sleep. Mary's right down the hall. She pulled the door closed, soft. Emily Carter, 5 years old, lay in a clean bed for the first time in her life. The biscuit sat tucked beneath her pillow, dry and safe. Her hands were bandaged. Her belly was full. Her hair carried the smell of soap. She closed her eyes. She did not pray to God this time. She did not need to. She figured he already knew. Downstairs, Mary Collins stepped into the front room where William Hale stood at the window. A cup of coffee, gone cold, rested in his hand. She said nothing for a long while, just stood beside him. Then, quiet. William. Mary. That child has not been struck recent. She has been struck long. There is years on her, William, years. I know it, Mary. What do you mean to do about it? William Hale gazed out at the long Montana evening, settling over the grass. His jaw tightened once. Mary Collins, I mean to ride into Bozeman on Friday. I mean to give my statement to the judge. I mean to make certain Hattie Mae Pritchard never sees the outside of a cell. And then I mean to ride to the courthouse and file every paper a man can file. William. Mary. You sure about this? William Hale set the cold coffee on the windowsill. Mary Collins, I have not been this sure of a thing since the day I asked Sarah to marry me. That little girl upstairs is home. And come Friday, the law of the state of Montana is going to agree with me. Mary Collins laid her hand on his arm. She did not say, William, be careful. She did not say, William, the courts are slow. She did not say any of the things she might have said. What she said was, then I'll iron your good shirt. And she went to iron his good shirt. Friday came cold and clear. William Hale rode into Bozeman wearing that good shirt with Emily Carter seated on the saddle before him. She was wrapped in a new wool coat Mary Collins had cut down from one of her own. The courthouse on Main Street was already full by the time they hitched Juneau to the post. Word had traveled through 3 counties. Hale brought a child in off the trail. The Pritchard woman left her for the wolves. Sheriffs holding both Pritchards on attempted murder. Folks who had never once stepped inside a courtroom stood crowded on those courthouse steps that morning, just to witness. Judge Reeves called the case at 10. Silas Pritchard entered a guilty plea, head bowed, hands trembling against his thighs. When the judge asked him why, he said, quote, 211, quote, 8 years. Hattie Mae Pritchard pleaded not guilty. She delivered it with her chin lifted and her bonnet pinned straight, told the court she had been misunderstood. The child had wandered on her own. William Hale had twisted her husband's testimony through coercion. Judge Reeves let her speak. He let her go on for a good long while. When she finished, he turned to Emily Carter, sitting in the front row on William Hale's lap, wearing her new coat, new shoes dangling off the edge of the bench, and the judge said, very gentle, underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 212, underscore, underscore. Emily looked at William. William gave one nod. Emily slid down from his lap. She walked to the front of that courtroom in her new shoes, placed her small bandaged hand on the rail. Quote, 213, quote, 214, quote, 215, quote, 216, quote, 217, quote, 218, quote, 219, quote, 220. Emily turned her eyes to Hattie Mae Pritchard. Hattie Mae Pritchard stared at the floor. Not a sound in that courtroom. Judge Reeves nodded once. Emily walked back to William. William lifted her up. The judge sentenced Hattie Mae Pritchard to 15 years. She did not scream this time, did not call Emily a brat. She just lowered herself into that chair like something had pulled the bones clean out of her. They led her through the side door, and Emily Carter never laid eyes on her again. After the room emptied, Judge Reeves stepped down from the bench in his black robe, walked to where William stood with Emily balanced on his hip. They saw it done that afternoon. Emily Carter, age 5, became Emily Carter Hale, daughter of William Hale of the Hale Ranch, by lawful adoption of the state of Montana. Sealed and signed before sundown. When they stepped out of that courthouse onto Main Street, Late sun was painting the windows gold. Mary Collins stood beside the wagon with a basket on her arm and tears running down her round cheeks. She did not bother wiping them. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 225, underscore, underscore. They went home. The years moved the way years move on a Montana ranch, fast through summer, slow through winter. All of them honest. Emily learned to ride a pony at 6, learned her letters at 7, Mary Collins teaching her at the kitchen table after supper. She learned to rope a calf at 9. William Hale himself coaching her in the corral. She cried the first 3 times. Rope came back empty every throw. The 4th time she caught her loop, and William Hale took the hat off his head and said, underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 226, underscore, underscore. Emily laughed so hard she tumbled off her pony. Mary Collins came running from the porch, hollering that they were both fool men, even though one of them was a girl. The biscuits under the pillows stopped eventually. Not the 1st month, not the 6th. Sometime in the 2nd year, Mary Collins went to strip the bedding and found nothing hidden there. She stood in the doorway of that small room, held the clean sheets against her chest, and wept for a solid 5 minutes before she got back to work. Emily called William Paw for the first time at 7. It slipped out without intent. She was in the barn helping him with a sick foal, and she said, quote, 227. William Hale went still, hand frozen on the foal's neck. Emily froze too. For one breath, the whole barn held silent. Then William said it soft, like the word might shatter if he spoke too loud. Yes, sweetheart, the foal is breathing wrong. Hand me that bottle. He did not make a thing of it. He never made a thing of it. He just answered to Paw from that day forward, like he'd always been Paw, like he'd spent 12 years waiting to hear that word again, which he had. Emily was 11 the year the trouble arrived. Its name was Garrett Boone. 3 years prior, Boone had come into the territory, bought land by the section, started crushing small ranchers with mortgages, rigged surveys, and a banker in Helena who owed him something he couldn't refuse. Garrett Boone wanted the Hale Ranch the way a starving man wants the last plate of food on the table. He rolled up the road one summer afternoon in a black buggy, a lawyer sitting beside him. William Hale met him on the porch, with his rifle leaning against the rail behind him, and Pete the hound asleep at his feet. Emily, 11 now, tall for her age, brown hair pulled into one thick braid down her back, stood at his side. Boone did not turn the buggy around. Boone smiled, a smile that stopped well short of his eyes, and he tipped his hat to Emily and said, quote, 237, quote. Emily Carter Hale, 11 years old, looked at Garrett Boone with eyes that had once watched a wagon roll away through the pines. And she said, quote, 238, quote, 239, quote, 240. Boone's smile slipped. Now, Emily said, he got off the porch. The fight lasted 2 years. Garrett Boone hired lawyers. William Hale hired better ones. There were nights the lamp burned in the front room past 2 in the morning. William and his attorney, Mr. Sutton, hunched over papers. Emily, 12, then 13, would come down in her nightdress carrying coffee. She would sit at the table. She would listen. She would ask questions that Mr. Sutton, after the 3rd such night, admitted were sharper than half his clerks could manage. When Emily was 13, she found the missing page. It lay in Davies's old survey book, a torn corner tucked into the back binding that she pulled loose by accident with her thumbnail one evening. On it, in faded ink, was the original 1869 boundary line, signed by Davies, witnessed by 2 old hands who were both still alive, both still willing to swear. Garrett Boone lost the case in spring of 1896. He lost far more than one case. The investigation that followed turned up the rigged surveys, the banker in Helena, the favors, the threats. Garrett Boone was indicted for fraud across 4 counties. He fled the territory, was caught in Wyoming, went to prison. The Hale Ranch held. The day the verdict came down, William Hale stood on the porch with his hat in his hands and watched Emily, 15, almost 16, ride in across the long grass on a chestnut mare she had broken herself. His eyes filled up the way old men's eyes do. Mary Collins on the porch beside him said, William Hale, you are crying. William said, Mary Collins, I am not. Mary said, You are, you old fool. William said, Mary, hush. And Mary hushed. Emily rode up to the porch, swung down, took off her hat, a man's hat, William's old one she had claimed 3 years back and never surrendered. Paw, sweetheart, we won. We did. Mr. Sutton says Boone's gone away for 10 years. Mr. Sutton was right about most things. She looked at him, he looked at her. Neither said the things they were thinking, because neither needed to. The next morning, Emily rode out to check the south fence, rode out alone. She was a woman grown in everything but years now, could ride the south range with her eyes closed, rifle in the scabbard, canteen on the horn, and Pete the hound, old Pete, 12 years old, gone gray in the muzzle, riding in front of her on the saddle, because Pete had decided in his later years that walking was beneath him. She found the child by the creek. It was not a child she expected, a girl, 4 years old perhaps, 5 at the outside. Brown hair knotted into tangles, dress torn, bare feet cut raw from creek stones. She sat on the bank with her knees drawn to her chin, eyes enormous and bone dry, the particular dryness that comes only after a child has emptied herself of every tear she owns. Emily Carter Hale reined the chestnut mare to a halt. She did not call out, did not ride closer. She swung down slow, knelt in the dirt 40 feet from the child, the way a man named William Hale had once knelt in the dirt 40 feet from her, and set her hat on the ground beside her knee and opened the saddlebag. Honey, she said, soft, softer than soft. The child flinched. Honey, I ain't gonna come at you. I ain't gonna touch you. I ain't gonna do one thing you don't say is all right. The child held still as stone. My name's Emily. I live up the road a piece. I got a pa name of William and a Mary and an old dog name of Pete. Pete, you stay. She let the words come easy. And a chestnut mare and a barn full of hay and a kitchen full of biscuits. The child's eyes moved, just barely. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 254, underscore, underscore. No answer from the child. But her stomach spoke, loud, the way Emily's own stomach had once spoken for her in a Montana dusk at the foot of a great pine. Emily reached into the saddlebag and drew out a cloth bundle, unwrapped it slow, a square of cornbread, cut neat. Mary Collins had baked it that morning. Mary Collins stirred honey into the batter because Mary Collins knew Emily had a sweet tooth, which she did. Honey, I'm going to set this here on this rock, and I'm going to walk back to my horse, and I'm going to talk to her a while. She's a nosy thing. She likes a body to make conversation. And while I'm over there, this cornbread's just going to sit on this rock. Ain't nobody watching it. All right. She rose. She walked. She stood beside the chestnut mare and spoke to her in low tones. Behind her, small bare feet on creek stones, small hands on a cloth bundle, a small mouth chewing fast. The kind of fast that comes from fear, the fear that food will vanish before you swallow. Emily did not turn. She kept her back to the creek a long time. When she finally looked, the cornbread was gone. The child had crept 3 feet closer, her eyes fixed on Emily's face, careful, measuring, the gaze of a creature weighing whether this world meant harm or didn't. Emily Carter Hale knelt again, one hand out, palm up. She did not reach, did not call. She held it there and waited. The child studied the hand, studied the face above it, then placed a small bleeding palm into Emily's. Emily lifted her, set her onto the saddle, climbed up behind and wrapped one arm around the child's middle. Easy, the way a woman holds when she is keeping, not gripping. Pete the hound, perched on the saddle in front, sniffed the child once, then laid his gray head across the child's small leg. And the child made a sound, the first sound since Emily had found her, a laugh, small, startled, the laugh of a creature who has just learned the world has dogs in it. Emily turned the chestnut mare toward home. She held the pace to a walk because the child was small and her arm was steady and the long grass burned gold in late afternoon light, and the porch of the White House sat far off across the prairie. Silence held for a long while. The child whispered. The child pressed her head against Emily's wool coat, did not cry, did not speak, just breathed. Emily Carter Hale rode home with a child in her arms. The porch rose from the grass. The White House, the red barn, the windmill turning slow. William Hale stood on the porch with his hat off. Mary Collins came down the steps in her calico apron, one hand already pressed to her mouth. And Emily understood, all at once, the thing her life had been moving toward. She had not been saved to carry gratitude. She had been saved to do this. Saved so that one day on a creek bank in the long grass, when a small, abandoned thing looked up from dry-eyed silence, there would exist in this world a hand that knew exactly what kind of hand to offer. Mary Collins reached the chestnut mare, held up her arms. Emily passed Lucy Adams down into them. Mary, yes, baby, this is Lucy. Mary Collins looked at the child she held. Mary Collins looked at Emily on the horse. Mary Collins stood on that porch looking at William Hale. Her chin quivered, once, just once. Well, she said. Well then, Lucy, honey child, you come inside with Mary now. We're going to draw a warm tub. We're going to find you a clean dress. We're going to... She stopped, looked up at Emily on the horse, her old eyes glistening. William Hale, Mary Collins called, gaze never leaving Emily. William Hale, would you look at your daughter? William Hale was already looking. He came down off that porch slow, stopped beside the chestnut mare, laid one big work-roughened hand on Emily's knee, and tilted his face up toward her. 16 years old, brown braid hanging past her shoulder, his old hat on her head. His daughter in every way the law and the heart and the long roads of Montana had ever recognized. And his voice when it came, it was the voice of a man who had buried two and raised one. A man who lived long enough to see her become the kind of person who stops on a creek bank for a stranger. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore 265, underscore, underscore. Emily smiled down at him. Not the smile of a child, the smile of a woman. The smile of somebody who had finally answered, fully, completely, the question the Pines had asked her once, 11 years back. When she was 5 and bleeding, and nobody knew her name. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore 266, underscore, underscore William Hale tipped his old hat. Emily Carter Hale swung down off the chestnut mare. She walked up the porch steps of that white house behind Mary Collins and Lucy Adams, stepped through the front door of the only home she had ever truly had, into a kitchen that smelled like biscuits and lye soap and Mary's stew bubbling on the stove. Behind her on the porch, the old hound Pete settled onto the boards with a long sigh. The windmill turned slow. The long Montana evening came down gold across the grass. A child once thrown away had grown into the woman who picked up the next one. From that day forward on the Hale Ranch, in the long grass of Montana, no abandoned child ever stayed abandoned. No hungry child ever stayed hungry. No frightened child ever stayed frightened. Because Emily Carter Hale had learned on a Montana trail in 1887 the only lesson that ever truly mattered. You are not saved to be grateful. You are saved to save.